Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I want to cover two things, both of them relating to how people are physically and how their relationships turn out. So there are a couple of these that have come up. One of which is from an article that I came across last year that I've just kind of not really. I didn't feel like it was long enough for a full video, so I've just kind of sat on it. And then the other one made apparent to me by a study that came out recently that was recently kind of published in a couple of different places. And so as a result, let's get into the one from last year first. So a study from last year, a study from 2017, took 8,000 Indonesian participants and revealed a correlation between the husband's height and the wife's perceived happiness. The study showed that a greater height difference between husband and wife meant the wife was even more happy. Um, and this was a case that they observed pretty much across the board. And so as a result, they dug around a little bit, and the study showed that the height and the wife's happiness had a very direct correlation, but it might not be strictly due to the inches like attached to the dude, but in regards to that came out wrong. But in regards to the other things that height is usually attached to as well. For example, there are other studies that have demonstrated that people who are taller tend to be considered more confident, tend to be, at the very least, considered to have a higher self-esteem and self-happiness, and also tend to be more capable of earning more as well. And so, as a result, the suggestion is that it's not just that taller men are more physically attractive to smaller women, but also that they have these other traits that kind of are either perceived or kind of actual that kind of run along with it. The study itself also found that taller men seem to appear to be more capable, seem to be more perceived as trustworthy as well, and as a result, it's one of those things that kind of follows through with this tall guy who is powerful, or at least perceived as such, is going to be more desirable. But the study also found that the husband's actual resourcefulness, the husband's actual capability to generate material wealth and use it in useful ways, was actually only a minor factor in the effect of the differences on happiness between the two. And it also demonstrated that men who were taller, that may very well be perceived as more attractive by default, and as a result tend to have a greater satisfaction in terms of just their general life, general happiness and general appreciation of the situation that they're in. Which again cycles round to them appearing more confident, probably because they're just happier in themselves, which then cascades onto them being further perceived as being more attractive, and it just seems to cycle on and on in regards to kind of how it all works out. It's I'm happy, I appear to be more attractive, people seem to want to spend more time with me, people seem to think I'm more confident, and as a result, then that makes people think I'm more attractive, which then they express, which then I take on board, and then it moves it forward and further on. In biological terms, though, from the evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology terms, women may be predisposed towards taller or bigger men, since they would probably be better hunters in prehistoric times. Taller legs, more capable of reaching into places that you couldn't get otherwise, potentially more capable in regards to running further, jumping higher, moving over obstacles at a greater speed. and so on and so forth, and all of that jazz that we've covered in other videos before when talking about this stuff. And so it showed that overall, women who have taller spouses just feel happier because they perceive their partners to be more attractive, resourceful, and happy, even if that's not actually the case. But the study did kind of cover its backside at the end there, going, as whilst this is the case, a study that had been done earlier on in 2010 found that women did not feel directly more attractive to taller men who expressed romantic interest in them, and that's probably a good thing, because height by itself and the kind of weird perceptions that go with it probably shouldn't play into kind of being a deal breaker for anybody. If it does, then that's just a bit daft. I can understand it to a degree, but it shouldn't be so impactful, and thankfully the 2010 study seems to suggest that it isn't. So despite all of the other things that run together, things like things that contribute to a long-lasting relationship more so than anything else tend to be more related to empathy, communication, shared interests, and all those other things, rather than purely height. But it was an interesting thing that I came across that I kind of wanted to share with you guys. But now on to the next thing, and this is the thing that came out from this year from a study conducted by the University of Queensland in Australia that researched 6,400 women, and the research lasted for 10 years, so it's quite a substantial study, this one. And this and what they did was analyse these women who were between the ages of 20 and 30, who were overall married and all the rest of it, and they found that weight increased. And it's one of those things, one of those kind of appreciated things that once you're with someone, maybe you don't try so hard, maybe you're doing X, Y, and Z, and so you put some weight on because you feel secure and all the rest of it, but that's not actually the case. You are more likely to, as a result of fostering a wonderful bond between people, just generally put on weight. And apparently this is the case for both men and women, which was then followed up by a second study that was conducted by the Southern Methodist University in Dallas, where they studied 169 different couples over 4 years, so still, again, maybe not as many people, but a substantial number of years to kind of run over this. And the more happily committed people were to their relationships, they would also gain more weight within those years than those who showed less satisfaction, less happiness, or who ended their relationships. And so then this is again followed up by another study which from the University of York that came to similar conclusions, where men and women will both put on weight when they are in very happy relationships. And this is noted that a good weight gain may very well be a physical sign of a good relationship. And there are a few reasons that this could be the case. Firstly, the reasons why you might be putting on the weight in the first place. Life tasks that originally you would be doing by yourself, you may very well be sharing with another person, in which case you're halving your workload, therefore meaning you're not doing as much. There is a good chance that you are spending more time cuddled up and therefore larger amounts of time inactive. There is going to be a fair amount of time, I'm sure, when you sit down and just gorge on junk food together of some description, be it a movie night, a game night, a date night when you go out and eat some very rich food, or whatever else. There are going to be those times. And as a result, it's one of those things that, yeah, there's a good chance the kind of you're pushing forward with things, so that even if you're spending a lot of time working on your health, even if you're doing an awful lot towards kind of making sure that you still cook and all that kind of thing, you're still going to end up sharing out those chores, sharing out those tasks, so you're not doing it as much as you maybe would be if you were by yourself. You're going to be making time for that other person, which means that that's less time in the gym, that's less time doing other things. And as a result, yeah, you're probably just going to keep that weight increase for at least a time. Now, in terms of survival, though, this is actually something that stands out as being really useful. Yeah, and none of these studies kind of compare to the animal kingdom, which would be interesting, but none of them, from what I've found on them and other bits and pieces, have demonstrated that. But think about it this way: if you've got into a very solid bond with a partner, then the one thing that kind of is that your biology wants to come out of it is things like children. Yeah, and so as a result, you're going to have to survive for longer, which means, as far as your body is concerned, surviving harsh winters and having a good energy store, because that kid is going to keep you up at night, it's going to burn you out. So you're going to have to generate a bit more of an energy store. The fact that we're seeing this weight gain in people just means that their bodies are storing energy more when they're in a good relationship. Good weight gain, good relationship. Doesn't mean that it has to stay there. Obviously, the two of you can plan out the way that you want to lose your weight, or work around it in some way. But then, again, from an evolutionary standpoint, this is all a positive thing. You go into an environment where it's hazardous, but your main objective is to have a child with the partner that you care very much about and you are very significantly bonded with. Right, in which case, you're going to need extra energy to just survive. You're going to need extra energy to care for that other person, especially on the part of the female in the relationship. You're going to have extra energy to provide for two people. And then moving on from that, yeah, you're going to have this new third individual who cannot defend themselves, cannot pull their weight, that you are going to have to cover in terms of energy cost, both in terms of being able to supply with food, keep warm, keep sheltered, and all the rest of it, and cater for them whenever they're in distress. That's going to be exhausting if you run out of energy, so you making sure that you have that additional energy stored as a preamble to those in that entire event is incredibly worthwhile. So there's a reason for it. It's not just a myth. But it's also not something necessarily to worry about, because if you want to lose it, you can lose it. It just maybe requires a little bit of extra planning, a little bit of extra discipline. But beyond that, it's something that stood out to me as stuff that people worry about. Oh, I got with my girlfriend and I think we're both starting to be lazy because we just both put on so much weight. And it's terrible, man. You know, I've been in the gym as much as normal, but I've still just put some weight back on. Do you know what? It's not a thing to worry about. Living apart from someone that you have a very strong bond with is probably going to minimize some of the effects. But again, because you're not having to necessarily make as much time, you're not sharing the workload with that person as much, you're not going to be spending as much time eating junk food and just chilling out with them as you would do if you were in the same place. But at the same time, even if it's just a little bit of weight, it can either be managed, it can be got rid of, or it can be accepted. As long as it's not leaving you in an unhealthy state, it's not something necessarily to worry about. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to bring these two to you because it's I know that there are tall guys that worry about being too tall and small guys that worry about being too small, and that's something that's yeah, there is something to it, but it's mostly perceptive and it's not a deal breaker, in which case, yeah, empathy, communication, appreciation of the other person that you're with, those are all things that are far more important to a relationship. Focus on those. Or you've got a list of things there: being confident, being happy in yourself, having a drive. Those are things that you can have whether you're tall or short, and so it's a case of just bringing those to the fore so that people around you can see them. Otherwise, in regards to the old kind of sayings about people getting bigger and giving up and whatever else, you're not necessarily giving up. You're probably not being all that lazy, but there is a reason for any weight gain that you're seeing, and it's probably not always a bad thing. It may very well be an indicator of a very good thing. So don't feel too negatively about it. Take it in your stride and just manage it. Just see what you can do. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to bring you these two things because, oh, I clicked the wrong button. I just wanted to bring you these two things because I found them interesting. And as I said, the first one didn't seem like a video by itself, but now that I had this second thing and it was all just relationships versus weird bodies, and not necessarily weird bodies, but things that your body does that are strange, or things that we see in each other's bodies that aren't necessarily even there. Stuff that I wanted to bring to you guys. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video later. Take care.